How's the week going? Thank you.
Thank you for reminding me.
So just as far as reflection from last week, if you're really new to this, it was about finding a space in your house where you can really sit and set up that practice. So I know it's not easy for everyone, but that you need to find that place to sit, and it can take a little while until you feel like this is working for me or I like this place. You can switch places if you find you sit there for a couple of weeks and you're looking out a window and it's too distracting, because that's often not helpful to sit in front of a window when you meditate. But so you can switch things if you find you want to be in a different direction. Sometimes I've stayed in the same place and then I realized I needed to be turned a different way. And I did, and then I just kind of reset up any pictures I had a little bit. You can always adapt like that. So really, it's really helpful. Anybody have any questions about setting their space up, types of cushions, what do they need, things like that? Feel free. And then it was also about checking on the posture. And I had explained the 7-point Varachana posture. I'll review that a bit this evening. Relax. Remember that step of relaxing? So one person that could not be here this evening sent me a message that basically said that she couldn't be here, but that step of relaxing really made a difference for her. You know, she hadn't thought about it before. So she would launch into meditation and then was very concerned that the dialogue, the inner dialogue, I'm not sitting right, I'm distracted, I can't focus. And that just made her more tense. So to even start with the whole premise to relax. So something we just want to remind ourselves about. And then we did a variety of meditations. Okay, so just refreshing where we came from. And just right now, for those, any questions from anything last week, anything you tried this week, what's working, what's not working? Have you never thought about it again since last week? Right, that often happens.
Venerable, I have a question.
Sheil, yes, thank you. I see the hand is up. Yes, thank you.
I find that it's hard for me to sit, like after 15 minutes, like on my 20th, like when it's like 20 minutes, my left leg starts to just pins and needles. And I can't sit in like full lotus, or I don't know if I'm not sitting properly, but yeah. Do you have any sort of like
Sure.
recommendation how to sit, or what?
Yeah,
Maybe I'm not sitting properly.
so here's the thing, again, as a reminder from last week, thanks for your question, is I would imagine 98% of you are not sitting in full lotus position, right? Okay, that's really difficult to do. Don't squeeze yourself to try to do it where you're in pain. Okay? If you want to continue to do yoga and you want to do stretching and you want to try to get your hips a little bit more flexible, more expanded, that's great. But that usually doesn't work for people unless they're sitting a lot and have really open hips like that. So you just want to find a comfortable position. And if you happen to be seated on a cushion on the floor, any cross-legged position is fine. So just make that comfortable. And then if you want to try a half lotus for 5 minutes, and that seems to work, and then you switch your position, that's fine. If you want to try full lotus for 5 minutes till your legs are numb or your feet are numb or your ankles are killing you, that's fine. You try a little bit, but then relax yourself so that you're not so focused on what hurts in the body. The other thing is experiment with sizes of cushions and types of cushions. So when I got into Buddhism and started meditating, and I explored a number of different centers where I was living at the time, And when I went into most of the centers, they had those round cushions called zafus. It's a round cushion about this big. And they range from like this high to this high, depending on how old they might be and how squished down they were. So I thought that was the kind of cushion you're supposed to have. And when I would sit on those cushions, I try to position them in a good way. My legs went to sleep within about 5 or 10 minutes. That's where you're going to get the pins and needles. So I now sit, wait, I will, let me just show you for a second. This is my cushion. Okay. It is it's very old. Vajrapani Institute was kind enough to give me this cushion when I left. I asked them, I was going to buy, it's a square cushion. So all I do is I sit on one little corner of the cushion under my tailbone. Low cushion, can see, and it squishes down. So I just put a corner under my tailbone, and I find then after a while, my legs are fine. But if your legs start to go to sleep, just stretch out one leg, shift your position, perfectly fine. So you have to find what works for your body. You have to find what works for your body. I also have a smaller version of that cushion, a small square one I was using to travel with, but it's too flat. So now I use it over there. I have it in that, you can't really see, in my meditation space, and I use it sometimes to prop up one knee. So feel free to use cushions to prop up. As you get older, you're going to need more propping.
Yes, yes. I just sort of was thinking, because I have to switch so often, after like, a time, am I losing my concentration? Is it, is the idea not to lose your concentration? Because mine's getting lost because I start having pins and needles.
Yes. So this is why we call it practice as well. So here's what happens is when I started sitting, many of you have heard this already. When I started sitting many years ago, over 30 years ago, really started a meditation practice. I was much younger. My body was much younger. My knees were much younger. Okay. When I started, I could barely make it to 10 minutes without my knees being in horrible pain. So I was in meditation session with a group. I could hardly focus on anything else other than like, how much longer am I going to be able to hold this? Everybody around me appeared to be in deep samadhi, in deep meditative stabilization, right? You have no idea of anyone's internal experience. Now we're home alone, so it's easier. You're not comparing yourself and looking like, but you have no idea what goes on in somebody's mind, even though their external looks really still. Okay. So it's really about me and my mind, not anyone else. You don't have to worry about anyone else in their practice. But because it's called practice, a meditation practice, let's say, the more you do it, the more comfortable it will be for you and the more familiar you will be with it. So now if I fast forward 30 some years later, I can sit for long periods of time in the same position I was in 30 some years ago that I could barely make it to 10 minutes. And the only reason is because my body's familiar with that position. So what you're more familiar with, you're more comfortable with. But it's just like if you're doing an exercise and you do it regularly every day, your body gets stronger and your body gets used to it. So that's why we really have to set up the meditation posture and practice and do it regularly. It will start to change. You will notice your body get stronger. You're able to support your back without leaning against something. Your legs are fine. For now, as soon as it starts to get painful where you can't focus on anything else, then shift your position for a little bit. And then keep going with the meditation. And then what happens is when the leg gets relieved, put it back in the cross-legged posture if you're seated like that, and go again as long as you can, and then stretch. And that way you can keep the session going without a big interruption.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sure, you try your best.
Yes.
Okay, we'll take one more question and then we're going to get get on to the next. Oh, wait, we have a few. Okay. Hello, everyone from Brazil. Okay. A head tremor that worsens when you're formally sitting. Okay. So do you get some shaking? Is that what you mean, Linda?
Yes, it's
Okay.
kind of side to side, like that.
Okay. So what often happens with the subtle energy system in the body is energy is moving through those subtle channels, and we're normally not aware of it. Okay. But for some people, as the energy starts shifting, you might even find, and I've noticed in meditation retreats that I might be leading a whole group of people, and every once in a while I'll look up and somebody is like this. Just because the winds are moving in your body and you're not used to doing it in this way. And so sometimes the body will shift and there'll be tremors and people have that. So mainly I would again go back to scanning your body a bit and just release any tension you find you're holding in it to see if that slows down the tremors a little bit. It's just energy being released in a certain way, or energy not being channeled where you want it to go. And we all have different obstacles, so we all have something going on. Yeah, so you just try your best. And some people also have, you know, as they age, or whether they have Parkinson's, or they have some tremors anyway, normally. So when you're meditating, they may get a little bit more accentuated. That's pretty normal too. So I think getting back to relax for a moment and let me scan and let me deepen my respiration. So every time I exhale, see if you can bring some stillness to your mind that may transfer to stillness to your head shaking like that. You can try. If it becomes really disturbing, I would stop the meditation for a moment, kind of open your eyes and just see your ground in your place like that. And another thing you might try, well, we'll do this tonight when we start. So then you can build it in, of the grounding of the roots of the earth supporting you. So I'll lead that a little bit. Okay. Okay. Watch my negativity. Oh, you wash your negativities down the drain. Okay. Yeah, so the scan is helpful. Thank you, Mary. And does it make a difference? Here's another question. Whether we sit on a chair or a cushion, I prefer a chair. No, it doesn't make a difference. It's again, what is most comfortable for you. Now, the thing is, you may want to try sitting on a cushion on the floor, or you can sit in a chair cross-legged if there's enough width in the chair, enough space in the chair. Just to try that for a moment without, because often in a chair, we're leaning back against the back of the chair. So you may want to just try to see if your body, but some people's bodies, either you're too old or there's other health issues. So you may want to just try that for a little while and see, but you can actually sit in a chair as well. As long as, again, the back is seemingly straight, as if the spine being as extended as possible, and you're not leaning heavily against the back of the chair, unless health-wise you need to. Okay. So let's find that comfortable posture. And I realize also for a class, you may be in a chair in front of a desk or not, but that's fine. And then your meditation practice may be elsewhere. That's also fine. 7-point posture. What do we remember from the posture? Any ideas? If you want to unmute for a moment, what are the 7 points before we start? What's the first point? What do you remember? Anybody? Okay,
Straight
so we
back.
have relax the jaw is not the first point. Thank you, SG, but no, but that's going to come. But what's the first point?
Have a straight back.
Straight back. Thank you. Thank you, Sheila. Again, remember, Rimshay said your sides are long. That means extension in the spine. Most important part is the spine, as extended as possible. We know the spine's not straight, but as if our back is straight. Thank you. That's number one. Number two, just so I can see what you've retained. What's number two? Position. What do you want to do in your position? Anybody? Or she'll just say, or yeah.
So then we want to check like how our legs are.
How the legs are. Thank you. That's number two. What's position of your legs? If you're in a
Um,
chair, the legs are straight down.
Yes, and you mentioned that if we are in a chair, we can try to have it cross, or we can try in the beginning to maybe do a half lotus and then just go back into crossing our legs, or we sit, if we're on a cushion, then we sit where our leg is kind of like not crossed, but I can't explain it, but they're not crossed, but they're touching, and your hips kind of open out. I don't
Yeah,
know.
so the main thing is just to know, number two is the position of the legs.
Okay.
So that's fine. So that's okay. Whatever cross-legged position, if you are on a cushion on the floor, not in a chair, okay? If you're in a chair, you're not going to have your legs crossed the way people, when they sit in a chair and your legs are going to be straight down if you're in a chair. The main thing is the body's balanced due to the position of the legs. Okay, so whichever, and again, you can try, like Sheil's saying, try a half lotus for a little bit, change it. But the main thing is, there's your base, those legs. There they are. Or in a chair, like this, straight down. Feet flat on the floor. Or if your feet are flat on the floor, put a cushion under them if you feel it's helpful for your hips. Okay, number three. What are we doing with our hands?
Right palm over left palm, thumbs touching, and hold this just at the level of the navel, palms up.
Great, super. And the thumbs are actually, again, if you want to see here, they're pressed together. So they're not just touching, because for years I was mistaken. I went like this. I just had them rounded. No, they're dynamic, pushed together to basically counter that vein in the subtle energy system that goes down the palm of the thumb to cut delusion in the mind, to suppress delusion in the mind. Again, supposedly, right? And so because it's right at the navel, thank you, Brian, my arms go out again. So what does the right arm represent? Right side. Just unmute and say. Anybody?
Compassion.
Compassion, our method, bodhicitta. Okay, and what's the left represent? Left side of these wings?
Wisdom.
Wisdom. Thank you, the wisdom. So I've got method and wisdom. Those are these two wings for me to fly to enlightenment that I need. So again, everything's symbolic. So thank you, that's really helpful. Okay, then I got position of the head, subdued, slightly tipped forward. Not too far, not down here, not up here. Okay. So that I'm bringing the gaze inward. Eyes are lightly closed or slightly open. Focus towards the tip of the nose or the floor in the space in front of you. And just slowly right now, allow yourself to find your way into this position. The lips are lightly together. The teeth are slightly apart. And the tongue is curled to touch the upper palate in the mouth behind the front teeth. So this is simply a guide of an effective posture. Everyone's body is a little different. So feel free to make some adjustments within reason that helps you be a bit more comfortable. And then you let go of the posture and you're just in the posture, not thinking about it anymore. When you do it again and again, after a while, your body just goes into this posture. It knows the posture. It knows what's conducive for your meditation. When we're new, we want to review the posture a little bit so that we don't forget any key steps. And as you begin to deepen your respiration, begin to scan your body from the top of your head all the way down to your feet and all the way out your toes. And again, using your breath to open up space in any places that feel tight in your body. With every exhalation, allow that tightness, that tension to release. And let's take a moment to check our motivation. First of all, why you're here this evening and what you're interested in meditation. And just thinking how meditation can lend some balance to your life and to your mind, can help you de-stress, can help you find perspective, a healthy perspective. And think of how that can help us deal with challenges in our lives and problems. Allowing our mind to maintain peace during these challenges and problems. Imagine that space. And imagine the benefit you could lend to others facing challenges and problems from your having a broader, healthier perspective. And imagine if we can reach a space where we're beyond problems, like a fully enlightened being. No more suffering. Completely blissful mind. But a mind in this tradition that's completely directed on helping all living beings perfectly. Think about that space of mind. Think about what it is to truly be free. So feel free to include that in your motivation if you'd like, or whatever motivation you'd like to set for this time and the remainder of your day. This is you directing your mind in a most positive way. Please set that motivation. So from here, it's nice to go into a breathing practice. So let's clear out some of the cobwebs, for instance, in our subtle energy system. May just help our meditation go a bit better with the 9-round breathing. 9-round breathing. Just one type of breathing exercise, like alternate nostril breathing. And in this case, we're going to start by closing off our right nostril. We're going to exhale. We're starting with an exhalation, exhaling deeply through the left nostril. As you inhale, you're going to close off the left nostril, inhaling deeply through the right. And imagine you're lessening anger and hatred from your mind stream 3 times. So our next round, we're going to close off the left nostril and exhale deeply through the right. We're then going to close off the right nostril, inhaling deeply through the left. Imagine you're lessening attachment and desire in your mind stream 3 times. The third round, we're going to breathe in through both nostrils. Or actually, sorry, exhale through both nostrils. Then you're going to inhale through both nostrils. Imagine you're lessening confusion and ignorance in your mind 3 times. Just allow the mind now to settle on the breath, a normal, natural breath. So again, you can follow and just focus on the space just outside the nostrils, where the air enters in and leaves the body. Or focus on the rising and falling of your abdomen, whichever is more comfortable. But after a while, just stay with one of those experiences, either the nostril or the abdomen. And if the mind wanders, just become aware without any further story, and gently bring your mind back to the breath. And as you're settling your mind, and if you're noticing any tremors or twitching in the body or anything like that, which is very normal, if you're seated in a chair or even on a cushion on the floor, in a chair, you feel the grounding of your feet on the floor beneath you. If you're on a cushion on the floor, you feel that grounding of your body on the floor, on the cushion. And whatever type of building you're in, or apartment or house, whatever floor you're on, it doesn't matter. But beneath you at some level is the earth, Mother Earth. And imagine as if roots, like a tree, the roots go down into the earth, but the branches above are flowing through you from the earth. You're part of those branches, part of this expression of the earth. So living on top of this earth. So feel the grounding of the roots into the earth from you, either through your feet, through your body grounded on the cushion. So grounded with roots, not in a leaden way, but in a stabilizing and supportive way. The earth is holding us. And simply deepen your respiration. And as much as you can, allow that stabilization to be there. So you don't need to expect it. You don't need to force it. Just let it be. If there's still some tremors, it's just our system ironing out the little wrinkles, adjusting. We're so not used to being still. So you just let it be. And returning your awareness to your breath. If it's helpful, try counting your breaths to keep you more focused. So again, one inhalation, one exhalation counts as one. And just see how far you can count before your mind wanders. If it does, you just become aware and bring it back to the breath and begin counting again at one. So please relax. And when you're ready, please open your eyes. So I want to talk this evening about the mind. Many of you have heard some of this before, but this is one of the big reasons why we meditate is to control our mind. And I have mentioned that there's nothing else, there's nothing else you can control other than your mind. We try to control a lot of things and a lot of people. It's very frustrating, okay? But when you really come around to the only thing I can control is my mind, but then you start to realize that you don't have much control over your mind, okay? So that's one of the main reasons we meditate. So let's look at the mind in Tibetan Buddhism. What do they say about the mind? The mind has two main characteristics according to Tibetan Buddhism. It's clear and it's knowing. Okay, so clarity and awareness are two of the main characteristics of the mind. That's it. That's your mind. Most people don't have that experience of their minds. They feel that their minds are busy, cluttered, in pain, distracted, tired, lazy, you name it. Okay, we've all been there. How do we find clarity? Okay, how do we find that clear, spacious luminosity? I mean, isn't that interesting if that's one of the real characteristics, real true nature of our mind is that? And what if we can merge ourselves with that more and more? Because that's a way to counter all the other negative states that appear. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. The mind is also considered a continuity, continuous stream of thoughts, experiences, emotions, moments of consciousness. Okay, one following the next, following the next, following the next. And I'll designate a little bit further, one causing the next moment, one moment of mind causing the next moment. Okay, over and over. Okay, so let me talk about, and also the mind, Buddhism would say, is like the sky and like the ocean, vast and spacious and luminous. Right? Is that the experience you have of your mind? Let's think about it. Right? And one other last thing they'll say about the mind, it's the source of everything, according to Tibetan Buddhism. It's the source of everything. So let's just look at the clarity nature. And I will, there's meditations associated with this. But the mind in its most subtle experience is a clear light nature, clear light nature in its most subtle experience. The mind exists on 3 levels: most subtle, subtle, and gross. Okay, gross, I don't mean disgusting, I mean gross in a level you can track. Okay, so 3 levels, but its most subtle experience is its clear light nature. And the mind, according to Tibetan Buddhism, is not physical. So it's not the brain. It's not the brain. The mind is actually located more here at the heart level. In Tibetan Buddhism, the most subtle mind is contained there, mounted on what's called a most subtle wind, that is the cause of your body, that is the sustenance of your body like a life force. Okay. So these are different ideas we have. We don't have, normally we're not taught these notions about the mind. We have other ideas about our mind. And this leads us, when we have other ideas that are less than generous, leads us to have thinking that we're not good, and we're not deserving of love, and we do everything wrong, and somebody looks at us the wrong way. I just spoke to somebody this evening before the class, right before the class, and it's so amazing how these little things, and just see if this is your experience at times. Is this your experience at times? So this person that called me was invited to what she referred to as a garden party this afternoon. She was really looking forward to it. Okay, so she told me about it a couple of days ago. I'm invited to this garden party. We had a little line. We both sang the garden party song to each other. You know, I went to a garden party. I don't know if you remember. Okay, right? I'm really dating myself now. But it was all this upbeat. We're going to go. And these were 3 people were supposed to be there that were kind of semi co-workers of a consortium that this person was involved in. So she was looking forward to the professional stimulation, but they were friends. They were people that used to work together at another place, and it was all good, all an upbeat. She went to the party. Somebody was at the party that she didn't know was being invited there. And they came, and that was a person that she had had a little static with in the past. Okay. So then she started to tell me the story about this man and this and what he said. And it brought up other things in her mind stream that weren't peaceful. You know, possibly, I don't know if it was competition or a way that she felt judged by him. And, you know, we get into these thoughts of what are they thinking about me? And then there were certain words he used, and there was like a posturing that went on. You can just see the whole scene because it was a kind of semi-professional meeting as well, but not really business, and, you know, it went right into the place in her, this person that I know. All the low self-esteem issues got fired up, right? Just from you know, really, it came down to like a couple of sentences from him. Yeah. But what happened is she had a habit of ruminating more about the sentences, more about what his intention might have been and what she thought he might have meant, and then second guessing that, like coming home and saying, so did he mean that or did he mean that? Overthinking. Okay. Have any of you ever been involved in overthinking? Or should I say rumination in the mind, right? Nobody, right? No, nobody does that, right? Of course. So again, this overthinking, and I finally said when she stopped talking, and I said, well, it's interesting because before you went to the party, you were fine. I remember speaking to you, you were fine, upbeat and happy, looking forward. And I said, so when you really boil it down to two sentences, you know, she gave me these two lines. He said that and he said that. And I said, you're the same person you were before the party, before you heard those words. And I said, you know, why are you putting so much weight in this person? He's not really in your life very much. He's not controlling. You have a successful career. You have all these other wonderful things going on for you. He's not controlling any of that, or it doesn't even have a part in it. Like, so very quickly we topple ourselves from, you know, one little piece of information, and it's simply a karmic seed ripening. Karmic seed of some negative karmic seed got watered and fertilized, and now it's popping up that makes me unhappy. Something I did before in my mind makes me unhappy. Just happened to appear this man saying these two sentences, and now my mind is headed downhill. Okay, and it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. Right? I caught myself this past week because I used to be an overthinker. I see it's pointless to ruminate. It's pointless anymore. It doesn't work. But there's a habit in the mind. There's just a habit. Again, relax. It's simply a habit. You're not a bad person. Okay, you're working on it. It's just so something going on in my life that was happening, swirling, and then I realized through a bunch of these conversations or whatever, and then maybe not having a conversation with somebody, and then I started thinking about what could be. I wonder what they're thinking about. I wonder what they meant by that line in this email. And then overreading too much, and then all of a sudden I caught myself doing it early on in the process, and I went, we're overthinking this, you know. And when you are ruminating and overthinking, please check again. It's all from your experience. It's all about you. What you think. Are you considering the other person? Because then I interjected for this person I was talking to about the garden party, and I said, what's going on for him? I said, is he working now? And she said, no, he's actually been struggling in the pandemic. And I said, well, it sounds like he's operating a little bit from some insecurities. And she somehow hadn't come to that place. Like she didn't think about that. Like she didn't think about him. It was all about suddenly how she was feeling and second guessing her work and her consults and I said, wow, you've been doing well in the pandemic, but I said, that must be really hard for him. You know, like suddenly it had nothing to do with you. You know, so this other thing going on for me as I caught myself early on, and then I just kind of had this thing, you know what, I'm not going to think about it. I have so much else going on right now. I didn't need to spend my mind kind of rotating through something that I didn't even know if it was true. You know, and then I let it go, and then suddenly a whole process opened up, and I was able to clear the whole thing and find out that some of the thoughts I had that I was thinking weren't true. It wasn't the story at all. Right? Through our rumination and overthinking, we make up some really amazingly creative stories, don't we? But they're not necessarily the truth. So why do you need to spend your time thinking about them? Right? So see if you can just play with that this week. Just play with, am I making a story about this? Am I over elaborating what really happened? Do I need to be thinking about this right now? Like, does my thinking about it help clear the situation at all? Help to bring clarity? Usually it doesn't. If you just let go. Okay, Mercury's in retrograde anyway, so everything's a mess with communication. Okay, just know that. Just operate from there. Okay. So, so that's a way to determine to come back to the clarity that if you remind yourself more quickly, oh, right, my mind is actually clear and knowing, I don't need to clutter it up with rumination about this issue. I'm going to deal with it the best I can right now and ask myself what's reasonable, what's a reasonable way to participate, and then I'm going to let the thoughts go. So meditation can teach us that and show us how to do it. Continuity of the mind, let's look at that for a moment. And then we're going to do a meditation on clarity and continuity of the mind. Tibetan Buddhism says that every moment of consciousness, which makes up thoughts, okay, the thought is made up of moments of mind. Well, every moment of mind is a cause of another moment. Okay, and that next moment happens to be the result of the preceding cause, the preceding moment. There is always a cause and effect relationship to everything. Buddhism teaches karma, and karma is a Sanskrit word that means action. It's the movement of mind. It's the movement of your consciousness. There's a cause and result or cause and effect relationship. Okay? So if you want to take that forward, if you come to the end and you go, well, my dying moment, last exhalation, the mind is there, okay? It's not the brain, it's a separate experience that has a unique way of connecting with a physical form, our body, okay, and informing how that body will be, how that life will be, okay? But that consciousness at the last exhalation, when you're actively dying, at that moment, most subtle mind is still there, along with subtle mind and gross mind. Once the last exhalation happens, in our system, you're declared clinically dead, okay? Then the subtle mind is more operating. The gross one is going. There's gross dissolutions that happen, then the subtle winds start dissolving that are supporting this life form, okay? And you end up with the most subtle wind on that mounted, the most subtle mind in the center of an indestructible drop at your heart center. Not the heart, the organ, in your subtle energy system, inside a chakra, which simply means wheel in Sanskrit, at your heart center, in there. And then eventually that consciousness leaves that form. When that whole system is done, all the karmic seeds finished, leaves that form and traverses into an in-between state of bardo, okay? And the reason is because that last moment of consciousness, whether you say subtle mind and it goes to the most subtle mind, is a cause for another moment of consciousness, Tibetan Buddhism says. And that next moment is a cause of another moment. There's no last moment. There's no final moment of your consciousness. And it is the mind in its most subtle experience is the thing that traverses on from form to form, from life to life. If you want to take this moment of mine right now, okay, Tibetan Buddhism says there's a moment that preceded it that caused it. And there's a moment before that that caused that moment, and a moment before that, and a moment before that, and a moment. And you can never, again, find a first moment of the mind because there will always be a preceding moment that caused it. So people go back to their conception and they go, well, that's when my mind was there. Conception is the beginning of your body. When sperm and egg meet, egg gets fertilized, cells start replicating. We know that biologically. All of those things are physical in nature. The cells, sperm and egg, all physical in nature. That causes physical things. So that's definitely the beginning of your body. We can prove that. Okay. The mind is there. Once again, what allows the fertilization to take place, Tibetan Buddhism says, a most subtle wind energy, physical in nature. Physical things create other physical things. What is mounted on the most physical wind energy, most subtle mind, most subtle wind, mounted on that is the most subtle mind, Tibetan Buddhism says. Riding together, separate, distinct, but in a unique way, connected. But it's all the karmic seeds in that consciousness that dictate how that form is going to be, how that life will be, like that. Continuity, the mind, no beginning, no end, continuous stream of experiences. And then what about, so mind like the sky, like the ocean, incredible vast spaciousness. incredible vast spaciousness. Let me just add a little bit more on this. Okay, let me see if I can, okay. So it's nice to think about, instead of the mind being constricted, busy, cluttered, small, you know, when we talk about people that are narrow-minded, we say, there's people that are broad-minded, open-minded, okay? So meditation is a way of adding space into the mind, reminding us of the spacious quality of the mind, okay? Like the sky. So for instance, think about the sky for a moment. In fact, let's do this meditation, it'll help. I think it'll really help. This is a meditation on the clarity of consciousness. And I'm just using sky and ocean as analogies, the clarity of consciousness, okay? So find that comfortable position. I know several of you have done this meditation with me several times. I'd like you to just close your eyes lightly. And now you're somewhat getting used to this position, and the mind can just right away settle on the breath. It just settles the mind for a moment. I'd like you to imagine right now as if you're lying on your back on a grassy hillside and you're gazing up into the clear blue sky. And this is one of the meditations accompanying this class, and it may be led in a slightly different way on the paper. And as you're looking up into the clear blue sky, merge yourself with that experience as best as you can. The clarity, the luminosity, the vastness. So you may have thoughts running through your mind that take you away from the clear, spacious luminosity of the sky that is like your mind. Just like when clouds come into the sky, they're just like thoughts passing through. There are light, puffy clouds, like when you have small, ordinary thought. Doesn't take up much space. The cloud comes into being, changes shape, moves through, and eventually passes away. Yet sometimes the sky is completely obscured by a bank of rain clouds. So we know the sky is behind the rain clouds. You see this sometimes when you're flying on a plane on a cloudy day, and then it pierces through the clouds. And there's that translucent sky again. Clear, spacious. So the rain clouds are like when you have a heavy delusion in your mind, taking up all the space. Anger, frustration, fear, jealousy, attachment, pride, depression, like that. They are not in the nature of your mind delusions. They're not. They're simply delusions and imbalance. So the more we can remain focused on this clear, luminous blue sky, again, merging yourself with that. Just notice what arises in your mind. Can you let it go, returning yourself to that clear, spacious luminosity of the sky that is like your mind? So if mental distractions are coming, like thoughts, can you see them like clouds in the sky? But instead of overly focusing on them, instead of focusing on the clouds, look at the space between the clouds. Focus on the space between the thoughts instead of the thoughts. There's a space of awareness there that is your mind. And here's another way you can work with clarity of the mind. Let go of the sky for a moment and imagine you're seated now, gazing out. You're on the bank of a clear mountain lake, gazing out over the clear surface of this lake. This lake that is like your mind. And every so often, a bubble forms on the surface of the lake, coming from deep in the lake. Just like the thoughts we have in our mind that pass through the mind. So we have a mundane thought is a small bubble. It creates a small ripple on the surface of the lake, small disturbance to the bank of the lake. Just like those mundane thoughts arise in our consciousness, and they subside quickly, leaving very little trace or disturbance. Our larger bubble rising to the surface of the lake causes larger ripples to go out, more disturbance, like a large imbalance in the mind, like a delusion. As you gaze out the still, clear lake, and it appears still, but we know there's always movement there, just like the mind, always change happening. Just allow any thoughts as they come and go, see them like bubbles on the lake. Can we let them go more quickly? Less disturbance, and less disturbance to the bank of the lake, which are those around us. So slowly let the lake go back into the space from where it came. And imagine you're back on the hillside gazing up to the expansive blue sky, clear, luminous, like your mind. And slowly bring yourself back into the space in which you're sitting. And when you're ready, please open your eyes. So if you're able, please to do this meditation this week as much as you can, at least if you can't get to it every day, a few times. Clarity of consciousness. Clarity of consciousness. I just want to double check. I think that is one of the meditations. I just want to double check that. Okay, so here there's meditation 5 and 6. So there's meditation like the sky, similar, like that. And then there is a meditation like the ocean, which we didn't do today, but you can certainly try that as well. So very similar to get us to the clarity notion, like that. And what's nice with, we've talked a little bit about this, the sky, but the ocean is also vast and always moving as well. And it's up and down like that, but there's also this vastness. So what happens when we get stuck in our challenges and our problems and we constrict our minds, and there's only this going on, and I just had a very funny experience this week, to give an example of, I went to the Philadelphia Flower Show yesterday. Okay, it's one of the biggest trade shows in the Philadelphia area. It's fabulous. I absolutely love it. I love flowers, and I go with some people that love flowers, and it's just a really fun time. This time it was outside. It's usually in March in the convention center. Different experience, and it was, the weather held. It was really great. Thank you, Sheila, for putting the meditations for this course and the readings there. Thank you. So you have those meditations. Please try to do those. Really, really helpful. Meditation on the sky, meditation on the ocean. I'd recommend this week, please. It's really helpful. And so anyway, we decided the three of us were going to go. And one of the people whom I love dearly, who's fantastic, but it was confusing about the tickets. There was some confusion, but this whole week, the staff is there at the flower show. So they're not by computers. I mean, they have computers there, but they're busy. They're at the show, and there's all these people coming. And this person, must have sent me, I don't know how many texts the 2 days before about the tickets, and it's not clear, and I can't get the tickets. And they said and so I finally said, to help them, I said, look, why don't I send an email and I'll research, because you're busy too. So I did my research, sent a few emails to the contacts and called somebody, got some information, and I got some emails back, but it wasn't totally clear. But it seemed like, we could just go, and we could go and get tickets there, and it would get sorted there, and we had somebody's name. And that was it for me. I was done. I was like, we don't need, and then they kept coming back. And are you ever like this? You're a dog with a bone. You just can't stop. I need to have the answer now. I mean, this person was just, the person I was going with was like, but I need to have it sorted now. And I've been like this myself, right? But so suddenly I said to them, it's a flower show. Like, it's okay. If the worst comes to worst and we don't get in, it's just a flower show. Like, okay. So just kind of reminding, and so this is a way you can remind yourself. The nature of my mind is spacious luminosity. Clear, spacious luminosity is really the true nature of your mind. Not fear, not anxiety, not depression. Now, what happens, yes, sometimes we have those situations moving through our mind at times. Absolutely. We're human beings. That's the nature of being a human being. Imbalance, imperfection. We're not Buddhas yet. Okay, I can't speak for your experience, but I can speak for mine. I'm not a Buddha yet. So that means I'm going to have imbalances in my mind. Going to have those imbalances. But the quicker I can remind myself when I'm taken hold of a delusion, when the clouds start to get really thick and I go, oh my goodness, I don't want this, I don't like this. right? The quicker I can remind myself, that that's not my mind. That's not so important to focus on. Or you may ask yourself, if it's a big challenge, a big problem, okay, so what do I need to do to deal with this right now? And am I doing everything then that I'm supposed to be doing? Okay, then let me take care of it. And once I take care of it, there's nothing more I can do. So now I can just stop thinking about it and let it go. Or now I might just have to wait for them to get back to me. And I'm just going to have to be patient and let it go and put it in perspective. Right? So it much more quickly helps you rebalance to understand the nature of your mind, the clarity and the awareness, like that. So we're going to look at next week, continuity of consciousness. But I just really wanted to stress that clarity, awareness, why we're using it, why it's helpful. Any questions right now about that or the meditation? Okay, so everybody's doing pretty well. Great. Okay. Let me see the next thing I was going to talk about. Here we go. So when you think about the ocean, and this is in the meditation, okay, when you think about your mind like an ocean, and there's a lovely book from Lama Yeshe that I highly recommend you read that's complementary also to this course and some of our Discovering Buddhism courses. Lama had, there were two books from the Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive at one point, which keeps all the teachings of Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. But one of the early books was Make Your Mind an Ocean. You've heard about that. Another book was Becoming Your Own, or Being Your Own Therapist, or Becoming Your Own Therapist. They've now combined it into one book. I think some of you've read the books. They're great. They're really great. But when you think of the ocean as a metaphor for the mind, okay, think of the fish, okay, and the turbulence at the surface of the ocean, the ups and downs, as thoughts and emotions that we experience in the mind. Okay, it's very much like that. You go into the depths of the ocean, you go into the depths of our fundamental mind, consciousness that's merely clear and knowing. Okay, but there's turbulence. If you notice, there's turbulence at times on the surface of the ocean. Fish can be a distraction. They clutter up what we think. That's like our thoughts and delusions and things like that. So you can work, if that works for you better, look at the one of the ocean. It's nice to try each of those. And then the last thing I mentioned, this fourth point about the mind, is according to Tibetan Buddhism, and Lama Zopa Rinpoche says this a lot, everything comes from the mind. Everything comes from the mind. The mind is the source of everything. So this can be a little shocking for people. And this is where we have a difference, okay, with God created belief systems, that there's a God creating it all. Okay, our mind in Tibetan Buddhism is the source of our happiness and suffering, not external to us. Nobody's doing it to us or fixing it for us, okay? But we generally live, okay, by something external is going to do it for me and make me happy. I'm going to get into this relationship because this person will make me happy, and they'll sort it all for me. So we see things outside of ourselves as the cause of our inner well-being, okay, as the cause of our problems, like that. So again, everything comes from the mind. And as a Buddhist, I would say you become, I always use these words, you become an inner being. That means when something reflects back to me, which the mind reflects things back, has that mirror-like quality, okay? And when something's reflected back that I don't like, okay, what the tendency is to blame externally. But as a Buddhist, you're right away saying, oh, so why is my mind showing me that? Because if it's something I don't like, Tibetan Buddhism says the seed's got to be in your consciousness. The seed came from your mind. The cause was in your mind. And now you're just experiencing the result. So it's something very different than a God, the creator religion, separate outside. And so it's also God, the creator religion sometimes appear, to me at least, to be taking all your power. Something more powerful than you is going to sort it, is going to control when you live or die or be happy, like that. You participate in that for certain, but Tibetan Buddhism puts you at the controls. It's all up to you. So you can fix anything. You can sort anything in your mind. In fact, and that's the main thing we do, is if we sort our mind, we make our minds happy. We dictate our happy experience. We can all make that happen for ourselves. Okay, you don't have to count on anyone else. All of that source is in yourself. So it's incredibly empowering. But you have to check about where your suffering comes from yourself. This is a tradition that very much asks you to look at where suffering comes from. I mean, this was one of the things why the Buddha left the palace. And the grounds was to sort an end to suffering. When he first encountered suffering, it was shocking to him. And encountering that, and then realizing, not escaping his wife and child and giving away responsibility. No, he realized, so much I can't bear these beings suffering. So first of all, I want to determine, where does it come from, right? And if I can determine where the suffering comes from, then I can fix it. Okay. And what he determined is the suffering comes from karma and delusion, right? And it's absolutely something we can do something about, because karma and delusion is in our mind. Okay? So please don't expect somebody else to sort it, to blame somebody else for your unhappiness, for your suffering, for your misery, somebody else's fault. That's what the external world, I know, is doing. And we get caught up in that. We get influenced by it. So it's very tricky based on who you hang around, what kind of influences they have on you. We're all subjected to that. There's no question. It's why I prefer living around Buddhists, in Buddhist communities or near Buddhist communities, or doing work with a lot of Buddhist communities, because when there's problems and things, that's what you discuss. How can I sort this? What's going on? Well, and if you're really suffering, there are times people will say, Buddhists will say to each other, well, it really sucks, but at least it's good purification. You're getting rid of that. And you can relate on those terms rather than, well, it's this guy and he's a jerk and she's awful. And because then you have little bits of brainwashing of that. And then you start thinking that way. Oh yeah, it's not me, it's everybody else. Okay, so you have to check yourself. Please check thoroughly everything I'm saying. Please check up and investigate. Don't just buy it, apply it to your life experience. Is it true? Please check, where does your suffering come from? Just go this week and look at, I was a little unhappy today. What happened? What changed? Ask yourself, what changed? This morning I woke up. I had to say to this person today. So it's interesting, you were looking forward to the garden party, everything going along swimmingly well. You were excited, it was great, the weather was nice, it was off you went. And then just this little interlude with this person. And now you're like second guessing yourself and your career and your work and your consultancy, and really, right? So again, the source of that happiness, and if you just look at it and said, wow, those words did disturb me. I know he's had trouble in the pandemic. He might be operating from insecurity. Well, I'm insecure too. So it went into that insecure place for me. But you know what? Actually, I'm okay. And I'm clear. And this morning I was good and I know what I'm doing and I've got my work, and aren't I lucky and wonderful? And then it more quickly balances. Make sense? Am I communicating? Okay. So I'm going to stop there. But again, clarity of consciousness with mind like the sky, mind like the ocean, those two meditations, Sheila gave you the info. There's some readings as well. And you can continue. And then look at the source of your suffering. What makes you suffer? Can you see? Is it coming externally? Is somebody doing it to you? Is it just coming from your mind? Is it your perspective? Is your mind not broad enough at times? Did you ever notice when the mind constricts? Like I had a laugh with this person about the garden, the flower show. We had a good laugh about it because I've often in the past, my history with this person, I'm usually the person, the dog with the bone. And I've kind of really lightened up, you know. And so I said to them, and I said, you know, and I said, well, I said, you know, you're acting like I used to act, aren't you? And then they just laughed and and they saw themselves and they realized, they said, oh yeah, like you don't do that anymore. And I said, you don't need to do it. You don't need to do it either. You know, like I said, how come you're, you know, and what's interesting with dynamics, did you ever notice dynamics with people? We used to notice this at our Buddhist centers, the retreat centers, is once somebody takes on a certain personality, you know, I mean, at one point we hired an office manager at one of the centers I was running. And and I don't mean to make, you know, she was very intense as far as her organization skills. It had to be a certain way. And I was so happy when we hired her because I used to have that role and I was really tired of that role. And somehow she came in and just filled it and I didn't have to do it anymore. And I was in a whole different mind space. So people take on these different roles and people have that in families, as you know. You know, you have the person that's always organizing everything, getting all the plans, and there's somebody that never always shows up late and they never know, you know, they can't commit till the last moment. And we all have the things. But when the person who can't commit at the last moment moves away, then somebody's going to fill that spot. Or when the organizer moves away, somebody tends to move in a way to that spot because you feel the loss. You feel there's a, like that. It's nice not to get pigeonholed and to try to be more fluid. And when you connect with your mind being clear, more spacious, a lot of things don't disturb you anymore. You know, it's like spacious wind, just things move through. You observe, you act upon reasonably what you can do, and then you let go, leaving your mind less fettered like that. Okay. Any last questions? Anything that anybody needs to know about? So thank you, Sheila, for posting the meditations on the sky. She's got them posted there. Please see in the chat. Mind Like the Ocean. Thanks so much. Thank you for the article, Make Your Mind an Ocean, Lama Yeshe. Wonderful. Greatly appreciate that. And certainly about making donations to the center, you can certainly do that. Really, really helpful to Shanti Davis Center. I want to thank Shanti Davis Center for hosting. I want to thank Sheila for being our host this evening. Thank you so much. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining. Please try to do the meditations and familiarize yourself again with the posture. Relax yourself. 9.9 round breathing if you like. Just taking some time to just try to focus on the breath, if that's helpful, counting the breaths. Whatever you can get to is really helpful. And then those will come more quickly. Now, you don't have to spend as much time, and then go to one of the Mind Like the Sky, Mind Like the Ocean. Try your best. Or you can do the Clarity of Consciousness as well, the ones we just did this evening. I'd like to dedicate any merit, whatever positive energy we've created, may we roll it into our having very rich, consistent meditation practices as much as possible. And that will not only help us fully wake up so we can benefit, the real purpose, so we can benefit all living beings. I'd also like to dedicate to our precious Geshe Tenli, who is our resident teacher at Kurukula Center in Boston, in the Boston area, who was in a serious car accident about a week ago. So we're doing a lot of practices for Geshe-la. He's lovely. He's a little younger than me. He's a dear friend, and hoping for his swift, full recovery and his well-being, and all those who have COVID and all those who are ill to have swift, full recoveries right now, and for our planet to recover from this pandemic as quickly as possible so people can be well and happy and more connected, to dedicate in that way. Thank you so, so much. And I'm also teaching Sunday morning from 10 to 11:30 about bodhicitta. And I start another class next week on Wednesday in the middle of the day, East Coast time, on establishing a daily practice. So if you want to register for those, I think the links, I'll just put, my website is there. The link should be there, and you can participate, but I think you have to register for those, for some of those programs, or at least get the link, and it should connect you to that if you can join. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, everybody.
Look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much, if not before.
Thank you, Venerable Amy.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks, everyone. Please be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.